Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. Something slightly different today on the channel instead of doing the news show. And this, to be honest with you, is a video that I've wanted to make on this channel for a while now. And we're basically going to be talking about contracts of Leeds United players. And we're not going to be talking about how much Okafor's on. Instead, we're going to be talking about when does Okafor's contract expire? Because as we know, expiry dates on contracts are massively important for every player in terms of how much value they're going to do and also when Leeds United are going to need to give them a new contract. Because as we know, as a blanket statement, if someone's got 2 years left on the contract or more, naturally the club can get 100% of their actual value that you would call it. Anything less than that, if they've got a year left on the contract especially, then obviously they'll leave for much cheaper because the year after they'd be leaving on a free. And Leeds United actually do have a few stars in the team right now, players that you would say are in the starting 11 who actually contracts do expire in 2027. So that will mean that Leeds United need to give them a contract this season before next season. Otherwise, they will go into the next year will be their sort of final year at the club, unless obviously they sign a new deal. So it's massively important that Leeds United get some of these over the line. But we'll start, before we get into it, of course, by looking at players that expire in 2026. Then we'll do 2027, and you get the idea from then on. But before we get into that, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massive helps the channel because this is a bit of a different video. So I want to see how you guys get on and if you guys enjoy this sort of content, more from a journalism standpoint, as opposed to sort of just talking about the news like we normally do. So if you do enjoy it, as I said, if you could do that, that would be fantastic. But yeah, let's start with 2026, shall we? And the first player, of course, that's contract expires in 2026 is Illan Meslier, the keeper that's been Leeds United, I think, for, was it 5 years now, something like that? Obviously started with a loan, then turned into a permanent, been there through the PLC years, now here into the Farke era. But of course, yeah, his contract does expire in 2026, which is why it would have been nice for Leeds United to move him on the summer just previously gone, because obviously now we probably are going to lose him on a free unless we get a January sale for him. Which is why I think it's a bit bizarre that Robbie Evans came out and said that actually it was nice that Leeds United kept him for this year, because we've basically thrown away probably £3 to £5 million, which is probably what I think we could have sold him for this summer. So yeah, that's slightly annoying naturally with Meslier, but that is the situation. Meslier's contract does expire in 2026. Then we'll look at other players in 2026, and we've got Sam Byram. Now, it's slightly different with Byram. He's been on a basically one-year rolling thing for a while now. He got a new contract this summer. I think this will probably Sam's last year at the club. So again, not massively important. But the next player is Karl Darlow. Now, I think he's more important for Leeds United because right now we've got a situation where Illan Meslier, as we talked about at the start, is leaving in 2026. And technically, Karl Darlow could leave in 2026, which we don't want, I don't think. So for me, Karl Darlow is probably someone that's going to receive a new contract this year. So I would, if you are a Leeds United fan, I would look out for that this season. And the final player is Alex Cairns, the sort of third or fourth choice keeper, depending where you put Meslier. His contract also expires in 2026, which again, I think comes to point at where the fact that we are probably going to need to give Karl Darlow a new contract this summer. I also think with Karl Darlow, because he's probably not in as much demand, same with Alex Cairns. Obviously, Darlow's got a lot more demand than Alex Cairns, but because of them two, you would imagine that they're not massive priorities for Leeds United in terms of we probably can get the contract sorted this summer, even if they've got no years left on the contract as such. I do think we'd probably better re-sign them again. So they're two not massively important, but yeah, obviously the big departing player this summer for free will probably be Illan Meslier. So that's 2026. Now, this is the main bit, 2027. And this is something, as I said, to really look out for, because these players are players that next season, so at the end of this season, will have 1 year left on the contract. So we'll actually be at reduced value. So for me, if these players are playing in the team, they need to be given a contract this summer, in my opinion, or before the end of this summer, this year. And the first player is actually the Leeds United captain, and that is, of course, Ethan Ampadu. Yes, his contract does expire in 2027 after signing a 4-year deal at the club, 3 years ago now? So, just over 3 years ago, and I think that's right. Anyway, but yeah, he's obviously been at the club now. He's done 2 years, and then obviously he's played it sort of a few months so far this season. But yeah, this is someone that I think, again, Ampadu, we are in a bit of a tricky situation with Ampadu now, because we are going to have to give Ethan a new contract this season for sure, because this summer, if he hasn't given a new contract, we're probably going to have to sell him this summer for a reduced rate. And obviously, this is someone that's massively important to Daniel Farke's plans. So it's massively important that we do get, obviously, Ethan Ampadu signed up. And the same you could probably say for Joel Piroe, who, again, his contract expires in 2027. So he will have a year left on his contract this summer coming up, which again is probably why, actually, when we talk about look at Leeds United fans and sort of what Leeds United fans think, I do think a lot of Leeds United fans wanted to move Joel Piroe on this summer. And I think obviously the reason for that as well is not just the fact that we don't maybe think you can operate into a Daniel Farke team this year, but it's also because next summer he'll be going for a reduced rate. Because Joel Piroe, with 1 year left in his contract, obviously unless we give him a new deal, will not be worth as much as Joel Piroe this summer, with obviously 2 years left on his deal. So yeah, he's another player that we probably could have got maximum value for this summer if he doesn't sign a new deal, but now we're going to have to sell at a reduced rate unless, of course, we give new contracts to him. So I think probably what will happen with Piroe is we probably will give a new contract to, or potentially sell in the January window if he's not being moved on, or you could look at doing the summer, but again, as we've talked about, it would be probably for quite a reduced rate. Another player in the first team as well, Pascal Struijk. Massive important with Pascal Struijk because he is obviously pretty much homegrown now. I think we bought him for £1 million, so his book value will be basically zero. So again, I do think the club probably wanted to move Pascal on this summer with the likes of Bijol and Bornauw coming into the club as well. But obviously, they probably didn't get met the asking price that they were probably looking for. And it now puts Leeds United again in a precarious situation here where we're going to probably have to give Pascal a new contract that maybe we don't want to give him because the money he'll probably demand at the age of 26, which I think he is at now, is probably going to be quite significant when we've already got sort of Bijol and Rodon probably on starting centre-back wages. So I think that's something that Leeds United are probably going to have to consider throughout the sort of this season. But yeah, if Leeds United are to move Pascal Struijk on this summer, it's probably, again, going to be for a reduced fee, which is, again, I think points to probably why Leeds United maybe wanted to potentially move him on this summer. And I think you saw that with the obviously the acquisitions that we made in the centre-back position. So again, he's another one that's massively important. So 3 huge names there, because you could argue in our best team, at least Ampadu and Struijk potentially could be in it. Definitely Ampadu. I think everyone's got him in there, sort of starting 11, including the manager. But he does seem to prefer Pascal Struijk to Bijol at this moment in time as well, Daniel Farke. So that's another one to massively look at. The next player is Brenden Aaronson. Now, obviously, I think the reason with Brenden we couldn't move him on this the summer just previously gone is, of course, that we bought him for around about the £30 million mark. And obviously now, obviously depreciating with contract brings that value down, but his book value is probably too high to the point he's actually worth. So next summer, I think we'll probably look at moving on Brenden Aaronson. If not, obviously, if the wages are not going to be committed by other clubs that are going to look in for Brenden Aaronson, potentially we are going to have to keep him and lose him on for free, which would be pretty bad for the books, considering that we brought him in for 30 million, what was it, I think 4 years ago now. Anyway, moving on to Ilya Gruev. He, again, is in the same situation as the other people his contract is going to expire in 2027. Again, I think that's why Leeds United could have looked at moving him on this summer with 2 years left on his deal. So again, it's going to be a player that either we lose on a cheaper rate with 1 year left on his contract, or we obviously end up give him a new deal this season. And the final player is Nmecha. Now, this is slightly different, obviously, because Nmecha is coming on a free transfer. Not just that with Nmecha, but also his injury records. I think a lot of his value is going to depend on how he stays fit. Hence, he was a free transfer in the first place. So, yeah, they're the 2027 players. But the big one to point out there for me, or the big 3, Ampadu, Joel Piroe and Pascal Struijk, because all players with big, for me, market value in the market. So it's important that we actually get them players signed up actually on new agreements to make sure that if we are going to cash in, or at least keep some of these players, that we can have them for maximum value if we are going to cash in this summer on. Because I think the club probably would look at moving on potentially Piroe or Struijk, or potentially both in the sort of next coming summer transfer window of 2026. Anyway, that moves us on to 2028. Now, this is not as important because this is something that I think Leeds United can just look out for now, because even next summer, they'll still have 2 years left on the contracts and you can still get big values for them. So in terms of 2028, you have got Gnonto, DCL, Jack Harrison. And that's a big one with Jack Harrison because I think people think he's got less on his deal. He's actually, as I said, got till 2028 and he's on massive money, which is why Leeds United couldn't move him on. But Jack Harrison's on that list. Joe Rodon's on that list, which is good. Tanaka's on that list. Bogle's on that list. And Sam Chambers is on that list. And I think the big one in there, potentially, that I would want to talk about is probably Bogle and Tanaka, because they're 2 players that next summer will have 2 years left on the deals. So Leeds United will have a decision to make at that point. Do Leeds United keep them 2 players who've got really good book value in comparison to that? What I mean by that is we can sell them for a really good fee in comparison to what we bought them for, which obviously is really good for a club really close to PSR, which we know Leeds United are on. Leeds United are really, really close to PSR, and which is why obviously we were struggling to get deals done in the summer for certain individuals. Look, if you look at the sort of attacking options, we struggle with that due to our PSR concerns. So with Bogle, who you could potentially sell for 20 million plus, who we bought for 5 million, whose depreciation his contract would mean he's probably 2.5 million book value this summer, and you could potentially get 20 million. Do Leeds United look at maybe banking a 20 million pound profit on Bogle and allow that to reinvest in the team? And you can say the same with Tanaka as well. I think bought about 3 million pound. His depreciation probably means he's probably got 1.5 million left in his contract. So do Leeds United again look at cashing in on Tanaka as well? I think it's something we're going to have to look out for. And if they don't do, obviously, we are going to then have to give them new contracts probably in the next year or so anyway, because otherwise they're going to be losing value. And for players with good book value, you definitely do not want to be losing value on players. That would be a massive mistake. So yeah, that is the situation to 2028 anyway. Moving on to 2029, there's a few more at 2029. Basically all the new signings, because obviously that will be 4 years from this summer. So you've got Longstaff, Dan James, who signed new contracts, Stach, Okafor, Justin, Perry, Gudmundsson, and Bornauw. Again, not massively anything to talk about here, just that they will have 3 years left on the contract this summer, having signed 4-year deals. Obviously, the summer just gone. And finally, the final player is, of course, Bijol, who expires in 2030. And the final thing that probably people want to mention as well is, when does the manager expire? Well, the manager is like Ampadu in terms of his contract does expire in 2027. So I think Leeds United are going to be, again, you don't usually see managers go into the final year of their contracts, which would obviously be next season. So I think this year will be massive for Daniel Farke, and it will make or break his career at Leeds United. And it will be a situation for me, or it will be sack of or a new contract. That will be this season, because it's very unlike, I know Bielsa used to do it year on year, but that was a very sort of freak situation because of the way Bielsa liked them 1-year deals constantly, and he would only sign 1-year deals. But yeah, as I said, with Farke, it's very much different to Marcelo Bielsa. His contract, obviously, he will be going to his last year of his deal next season at this time. So Leeds United are going to have to move on, either move him on or obviously give him a new contract. So again, a massive thing to look out for. So I think the big things to take away from this video are the sort of 3 or 4 key players. You've got Ampadu, massive. Piroe, massive for new contract. You have obviously got as well Pascal Struijk as well, and Daniel Farke. I think they're the big 4. What's going to happen with them this year? I think, personally, right now, potentially all of them will get new deals. I think Farke's probably the only one that I think there will be a bit of question mark over. But yeah, that is the video today. It's slightly different. I hope you've enjoyed it as always. More of an informative video as opposed to sort of me giving loads of opinions. But if you do want the opinions of these players, naturally going to come up probably in the next few weeks or so when we're discussing it in these news shows, because obviously, like I mentioned, contracts massively depend, I've used massive so many times in this video, but these contracts usually depend on market values of certain individual players. Like we've talked about in this video. So that will be obviously something that we mention coming forward. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video as always. And I will see you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now, everybody. Bye for